Today I want to talk about the idea of serving two masters, or how not to do that. This goes back quite a ways for me. Most of you know our story, that we started out in a desperate situation, 7 years of trying to figure out how to make ends meet. If you haven't heard the story before, you will. Stick around long enough. I've said it so many times. But after we realized that our thinking was having an impact on our results and how things weren't working out for us, and how we could make an adjustment to the way we thought and experience better results, which we did, that became, of course, my new passion, to help other families understand these principles so that they can prosper, so that they can bring moms home from work if that's what they want, so that they can be of greater service to their community. Because when you're so self-absorbed about your needs, it's really hard to look outwards and help others. And I know there were times when I would try to look outwards and help others as a remedy to my problems. That was always short-lived, because I was always snapped back to reality that our needs weren't being met. And so I understood the principle to a degree that I would make attempts, but I hadn't figured it out. Through all of that, my biggest dream was just to be a mom, to stay home with my babies, raise them, and just be an amazing mom. That's really all I ever wanted. I never was looking for a career, although when I was 12, I did attend a youth camp that had motivational speakers, and I remember thinking, if I'm going to do anything, that's what I want to do, because as long as I'm going to be working, I'd like to be changing lives. I'd like to be helping people. And so that dream to be a speaker one day was planted, but I had no idea what my topic would be until much later. But my wrestle was about being mom versus trying to help with the income. And when we discovered the principles, and I felt compelled to share what we had learned, and started doing seminars, but that got to be really hard because I had 5 kids, one on the way. And, it wasn't easy to put people in seats at these events when we were coming from nobody knowing us. So it was friends and family to begin with. And my husband was working 2.5 hours away from home. We were living in a 2-bedroom house that we were fixing to flip. No carpet, tack strips exposed, babies crawling. It was crazy. But I can't not share what I've learned. Our income had grown, and we were getting on top of our bills, and we were making progress, and we were planning for our future. And it was really exciting, but all the pieces hadn't quite fit into place yet. Everything was still in process. So that's when I stopped doing seminars, and I thought, well, I'll just write a book and let that be my seminar. That's where the Jackrabbit Factor came from. But through that, I was still pulled between whether I should be focusing on my kids or whether I should be writing the book. It was this constant battle, and every time I'd be working on the book or writing or helping people, there was a piece of me that was feeling guilty that I wasn't over here playing with my kids. And this was a constant struggle, because my heart was in both places. I wanted to be doing both things. And not only that, but I felt duty bound to share what God had given us. So I knew it was good and right to do that over there, but how do I reconcile this constant pull from back and forth and back and forth? And then I heard Sharon Lecter. She is the co-author to the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. I heard her speak where she addressed this, and she said, all right, everybody in the room stand up. So we stood up, and she says, now balance your weight evenly over both feet. And as we did this, she said, all right, now notice the energy in the room. And we're like, okay, not sure what we're noticing, but took note. And then she said, now sway back and forth, shift your weight back and forth from one side to the other. And we started doing that. And you could feel the room lifted a little bit. The energy lifted a little bit. And she said, there is no such thing as balance. It's a myth. If you are perfectly balanced over both feet, you will never get anywhere. You're stuck. You're stopped. You have to be willing to sway back and forth, shift your weight from one to the other, shift your weight from one to the other, and that allows you to swing your foot forward and make progress. And so she painted a picture that helped me realize that it was okay to do this over here with the work, and then come over here and take care of the family. And then when everything's good over there, come back and do some more work. And this shift from back and forth, I gave myself permission to do it. And that was step 1 in reconciling these two worlds. We got wrapped up in the recession. We had invested in too much real estate at the top of the market. And as that was collapsing, we were frantically trying to hold everything together, trying to apply the rare faith principles that we had learned that got us to that place to get us through the recession. And we learned a lot of lessons through that. We learned that the law of polarity. Just because there is a seed of equal or greater benefit in every adversity doesn't mean that that adversity is the thing that becomes the great thing. Like, we would look at our poor investment and we would think, well, just with right thinking, we can somehow turn that into a good investment. And it didn't always work out that way. Sometimes that bad investment was just a horrible investment, and nothing we could do or think was going to turn that into a profit. But it didn't mean that there wasn't this other opportunity over here to counterbalance that wreck. And sometimes those positives on the other side were just the lessons we learned, that we were able to be more wise and guided in our next choices, our next investments. And so the law of polarity is real and everything. It's just we learned some more things about it that helped us fine-tune our understanding. After the recession, and we were kind of shell-shocked by what we'd been through, we nearly lost everything, and we downsized and we sold off things, and we just really simplified our life. And I was feeling a little bit gun-shy about continuing to teach the principles. I knew they were true. They proved to be true. We were just kind of beat up from what that all felt like. Those of you who have heard or read the book Portal to Genius, that restaurant moment where we were at the end of all of our money, save maybe $200 left, and no paycheck in sight, and $15,000 in bills coming due within a couple of weeks. No job. We were just self-employed, and imagined how we were going to be living 10 years from then, to kind of get out of our stress and our anxiety about it. And we let ourselves get excited about the future again. And I'm not going to tell that whole story here, but that brainstorm led us to an idea that brought us $43,000 that month alone. And so the principles are still true, and they work even in hard times. But it was still really, really rough on our psyche. And when we were on the other side of that, and I was feeling gun shy about teaching, because I was still trying to figure out, okay, what do I know? What still is true? What can I share from what we learned through all of that to add to it? I was a little bit gun shy as well about setting new goals, because I had just run through a series of goals that I had set that didn't happen, and trying to make sense out of those, and just didn't want to be disappointed again, you know? Sometimes it's hard to set a goal when you just are afraid of being disappointed again. So I took some time away from the work. I had to strip it all away and get quiet, because I needed to get recentered and find that still small voice that would speak peace to me on what I should do next. Because having kind of reset everything and starting from a place of, all right, we're through the recession, we're back on our feet again, things are looking good, but I'm not sure I'm ready to run again. I'm not sure I'm ready to be too ambitious again. Let's just do this at a comfortable pace, because it had been our ambition that had gotten us into trouble. But through that, I thought, well, I'm going to take some time away, get centered. What can I do? I decided to take a volunteer assignment working with youth. It was a 2-year assignment in my community, just to go someplace where I was being told what to do, and I would just do what I was told, instead of creating or thinking or selling or marketing or building. I just wanted to be told what to do and get lost in the service of others. It wasn't a paid opportunity. It was just a place to give service and forget about myself. That was really, really healing. During that time, I started wondering, well, you know, when this is over, and what it actually did, and I had kind of started working again, but it was a forced pause every week. Every Wednesday, it made me stop whatever I was in the middle of to go do my 6-hour assignment every Wednesday. Stop what I was doing to go serve someone else. It would make me pause, slow down, and then I'd get back home and start running again with the work we were doing. Just that forced pause every week got me thinking a little bit differently. And don't forget, I am coming back to that 2 masters thing, serving 2 masters. So during this volunteer assignment, I just got to enjoy the people I worked with. I got to get really good at folding towels and directing people and just doing what I was told. And it was peaceful. It was joyful. I really enjoyed it. And I started thinking, well, when this assignment is over, I could do anything. What do I want to become? I could create from nothing. I could start over. It was like a fresh start for me. And this was about 2017, I think. And I started thinking, well, maybe, wouldn't it be amazing if I could go hold newborns in the NICU? That would be a great volunteer. Or if I wanted to have a job, maybe I'll go become a nurse. Maybe I'll go to school and become a nurse. That's an amazing profession. And I think it'd be a great way to carry what I'm feeling in this volunteer position into a career. My kids are almost grown and I could just pick anything. And then I was looking at how long it would take to get certified to do that. And then I was looking at the kind of hours it would take. And then I just wasn't sure if that's a commitment I wanted to make. And so then I was thinking, well, maybe I could be an office lady at my kids' school these last few years at their high school. That would be cool, office lady. So I started imagining that. And I started thinking about what that would be like. That would be really cool. Yeah, maybe by the time my youngest is at the high school, that would be a good time. I'll plan on maybe doing that. So I started thinking about that, and I mentioned it to a friend who had some connections, and within a couple months, I got an offer to work as an office lady at one of the schools. It wasn't at the school I was thinking about, but it was one of the ones that my children were at, and it just kind of woke me up. I thought, oh my goodness, I could actually do this if this is what I really wanted to do. Just be an office lady, which is just being told what to do and doing a really good job at it. My brain was kind of tired of creating. I just wanted to be told what to do and just blend in with the community and with the other administrators that work at the school and just blend in. That sounded really delightful. And then as I started thinking about it, I realized, wait a minute, what those hours would be, how much of my week would be spent doing that, what I would be doing. I'm not folding towels and directing nice people in a volunteer environment. I am dealing with upset parents, drama between coworkers maybe. It's a paycheck and it's not a huge paycheck. And I just started thinking about all the details of it. I'm like, I'm not sure I want to do that. And nothing wrong with that opportunity, honestly. But the reason I decided I didn't want to do that, and it brought me back to the work that I do, was also a thought that said, and if you were to go do that, everything that God has taught you in the last 15 years will have been for nothing. And that kind of woke me up, just that subtle thought. It was a very quiet thought that asked me if that would be a good stewardship of what he had given me. I saw what I'd been given in a different light. Just my life experiences and the principles that I'd discovered. It's not a huge deal, but I know that it was a huge deal to me when I discovered them, how it changed my life. And I know it's been a huge deal to others. But I needed to figure out if I had that freedom to choose, and I did. But just that sense of stewardship is what kind of woke me up. And so about the same time, my husband and I had been talking about how one day, we'd like to have enough money to retire early and just go serve, throw ourselves into service somewhere, whether it was a mission assignment or whatever, just find a way to serve like I had done with these youth, where we weren't thinking about money, where we were just giving of our time and talents. And we'd get excited about the thought of that, but we had a lot of work to do, having the whole recession was like, it almost felt like we were starting over as college students, looking for a home again, looking for how we were going to achieve our goals when we felt like we had just set ourselves back so far. But we wanted to be of service. And then simultaneously and independently, we both had a thought that that's what we already get to do with this work. It's like a mission for us. And I don't say that to sound, I don't even know what the word is, but something shifted in us. Like when I first started putting these things together, the books and all that, it wasn't for the paycheck, because there was no paycheck for a long time. You write a book and there's a lot of labor of love going into it before you see any return. But that's where my heart was. I was doing it for the service. And then it was during the recession, it was making some money, but then it became what we needed to live on, because my husband didn't have his work and we were doing this full time. And suddenly that sense of service kind of got edged out and we were having to do it for the paycheck. And it just kind of ruined the feeling of it. And I think that's why I burned out. It's not where I wanted to be. And so coming out of it on the other side of the recession, and my husband had gotten a job again that was providing well. And he set himself up as our CFO. chief financial officer. In other words, his work is what funds what we do so that what we do can be with a feeling of service. And there are expenses with it that, when we do charge a fee for certain things, there's things that covers to help the systems and the developers and things that we have to pay for to make these things available to people. But we try to keep it affordable. And we do make a lot of things for free. And as we were thinking about someday serving missions, we both decided that this would be our mission for now, that this is how we will serve, that we would not let go to waste what God had taught us, but that we would give our heart to trying to be as effective as we can in helping other families discover what we'd experienced. And so back to the two masters question. I just remember one day kind of realizing, wait a minute, it's not a balance between family or the work. If I wake up with a heart desiring to serve my God, then in any given moment, that service may be what my child needs. And in the next moment, it might be what that reader needs. But in any case, it's just serving one God. And my life, to view my life as service and just giving of myself in whatever way I can, God's not going to ask and expect me to do two things at the same time. But if the work you do is with a heart of service, and no matter what your job is, it could be cleaning windows, it could be convenience store cashier, but if you show up at your work with this heart of a servant, and you go there to serve God, and then when you come home, you are there to serve God every day, and you're always in the service of God, then it's not a conflict between serving two masters, God and mammon, or the world and spirituality, or money or relationships. It's just show up in a spirit of service and a heart with an eye single to God's glory. And here's how it all marries with the rare faith principles. Once you start to recognize, once you start to have some experience with a connection between your thoughts and how things show up for you, or how your problems are solved by the faith that you bring to it, how you refuse to fear but trust God in every moment. Like when we worry about not having what we need, it's usually because we're worried about what we won't have for Tuesday when that bill is due, but it's not Tuesday yet. And so to recognize his hand in your life in this moment, that in this moment you have everything you need to do the next thing, and allow him to lead you to know what that next thing should be. Sometimes it's going to be serve your family. Sometimes it's going to be to serve someone else. And if it's working, you show up with a servant's heart, and when you have more than filled your place, then the undesirable environment can no longer hold you, and opportunities will come to you that help you expand out of them. So it's recognizing God's hand in every moment, trusting him that your needs are met, being grateful for what you already have, and just leaning on him from moment to moment. That is one thing that we learned through and after the recession, was that it wasn't about making sure we had enough money or a lot of money to meet our needs. It was letting go of the worry about money and recognizing his hand right where we are and trusting in his provision. And yes, bills will come, but when you have one that's right in front of you that you're worried about, just see yourself the day after being so grateful for what God did to help you through that. Imagine telling your spouse, man, can you believe how that one worked out? That was amazing. And when you start doing that and you start seeing it happen every time, and you can look back on 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years history of that happening every time, you begin to stop worrying about the money, and you can just throw your heart into the service of others. So that is my hope, to help readers along that path to discover that peace of mind in any economy, to prosper, but not for the sake of prospering. And by prosperity, I have a new definition for that. It's having what you need to accomplish what you were put here to do. If you want some extra help figuring this out, if you can join us in the guided class, you're going to have conversations like this and about these things on a weekly basis, and it'll make a difference. Encourage you to join us in there, and we'll see you next week.